silly me. Well, welcome to this group session for North America and Europe. And today's topic is going to be character development exercises. I'll take you through some of the main points we discussed last time. I'll share the screen with with one of those slides we went through last time, so at least the rest of people, those who weren't there last time, will get an idea as to what we talked about. And then we're going to go straight into character exercise, and we'll start with Awida. If Awida is no worries, that's good. It's good because what you're going to do is being distracted is just you just go for feedback, whichever way you think it. You feel it actually fast. No worries at all. It's good. Thanks for joining us. So let's get this. So in our first session, we're going to repeat these things again anyway. We'll go back to this again. We talked about designing your characters, and the most important points were these. It's a myth in editing and publishing that you develop your character in your story. You don't. Mm-hmm. Your character, your reality is that your character is already developed when, by the time you put your character or characters to your story, you are already developed. It doesn't matter what stage of their life your characters are, they are already developed. And this is very important to understand. Because if you don't take into account where your character is coming from, then how are you going to develop that character? Where are you going to put your character through to develop, or how are you going to do it? And how you do it is you create your characters outside your story. You always design them the same as we did, and we always do with your ID read avatar. You design your characters, and what you want to do then, you do it because you want to make them as real, as believable as possible. There's a massive difference between trying to make them likable and believable, realistic. This is where most people go wrong, most writers. They try to make them likable. No. They need to be realistic. And where you put them through, that character you created outside of the story is going to make them likable or not, or is going to let the reader decide what to do, what to make of your characters. Mm-hmm. And the outcome, then, that character you already created with those weaknesses and strengths that character has, is going to dictate how they react to your story. Whatever you put their way, they're going to react a certain way, interact with other people, other characters and scenes and events you create, you put their way. So as a narrator, then what you do is, all you can do, and this is your strength, you could put circumstance or luck in your stories of your characters, whether protagonist, antagonist or more, or if it is a memoir bio, then they react to that one. You, accordingly, when it comes to real life events such as memoir or biographies, then what happens is you choose those events and those circumstances that best represent the message you want to deliver in that particular part of your book, of your chapter, of your part. The problem is always you're emotionally attached to your characters. Therefore, there's a strong chance, particularly at the beginning, you're biased. When you are at that creative stage, which is the writing stage, you are the artist. It's good to have that emotional attachment. Otherwise, there won't be any, it won't sound as real and emotional as it needs to. But the more you go through the story, you still go back and forth with the editing process, the more impartial you need to become. How you go about it, the way you dissect, dissect yourself first, and you're those closest to you, and then you move to your characters. And I gave you a few step-by-step processes, hints and ideas as to how to do that. We're going to get into more detail in other calls where we're going to tackle particular parts, but we're going to tackle the protagonist, the antagonist, we're going to tackle the baddies, the goodies. So that will apply those principles a little bit more. So that was the idea behind sketching your characters, which we talked about last time. So I say, let's get started, and let's go with discussing any ideas, any concerns, any characteristics of your characters, whether you want one. It's better to go start with one, to have one.
Yes, I have a question.
Go for it.
About characters and conversations, like dialogue. Is it not so that we use the dialogue to make the character more clear to the public, to the reader?
Yes, it's one of the best ways.
Yeah. So without dialogue, we cannot characterize somebody.
Yeah, one of the best ways to expose your character, the way they think, behave, and react to the world of the other characters is through that dialogue. And by going back and forth, then you start to realize how their thought process, how they react to certain circumstances is very, very good. So one of the best ways is to pick up a part of your draft, whether your characters, it doesn't matter. In your case, for example, we talked about your mother. You see the interaction, or your auntie when she was walking down the park, Oyster Park, and her thoughts. Then in this way we start to understand more her fears, desires.
So also the dialogue with oneself.
That's the same.
So the person like talking like
yeah, that's
what they were thinking also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all part of it. It doesn't have to be only the characteristics we think that your character had, but how that interaction, back and forth dialogue evolves. Thank you. It's good.
All right.
It's good, Joost. Great. Okay. Oida, do you want to go ahead first?
You want me to go ahead?
Well, I thought because you need to go at some point, then maybe, yeah, so you don't. So I'll keep an eye on the timing. It doesn't matter.
What if I go second?
Okay, perfect. Absolutely. Aileen, do you want to go first? Aileen?
Sorry, I was trying to mess around with my,
That's okay.
my video.
You did do a brilliant thing. You shared a part of what you wanted us to discuss together about the So please go ahead first. Tell us, share with us your character and anything you want us to go through, to discuss, to tackle. Share the screen if you want it with us, and I can share that part you shared with us. Over to you.
Oh, you can share it because I don't have it up right now, or do
That's
I?
okay. I'll find it. Yeah, I've got it here.
Thank you.
That's okay. Bear with me. Carry on, please.
So my name is Aileen Edwards. Nice to see you all. David too. Wida. Jos, nice to see you. And Jenny.
Thank you. Likewise.
So my character is my mom. So this is part of a mom and dad chapter. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about my mom, who is my hero, and how difficult was for her in her childhood. And I tried to recreate this little piece here from what I've learned from others, from her sister, my aunt, because of course I didn't know my mom when she was a child, and I didn't know the trials and tribulations that she went through. But I thought I had an idea of who my mom was from, her being my hero. And then I found out some very disturbing things from my aunt, who was her sister. So I had a thought of writing it one way because it involved my mom. So my chapter is called Mom and Dad, and it involved my dad as well, who I've never really been close to all my life with my dad, but I never really saw him in the light as it was described to me by my aunt. So this really is developing my mom. And it's interesting, I probably haven't seen this. The last draft I have was February. So when I looked at it yesterday, I'm like, oh, this needs some work. But it just really introduced my mom, how she was, or what I knew of her when she was born, where we came in, and then it talked a little bit about her struggles with my dad. So that's just a wee snippet of the first part of it.
okay, what's your most concerning part? As far as your mom is concerned, when describing her, the interaction you have with her, the dialogue with her, you have with her in the book, and the way you describe it, what is it that? Okay.
There's more. So I just sort of said, she's the best person. And, she was married at 16. She had all these children. And then I jumped into something else. You don't see the other part of it. I just thought I could probably put more in that first paragraph about my mom,
Okay.
um,
Fair enough.
that's what, when I looked at it, I thought, oh, is that it? I mean, there's more to it, but
Yeah.
I just thought it would be nice to introduce more of it up front. So move things around.
If you were to describe in one sentence how your auntie summarize in one sentence how much your auntie described your father in relation to your mother, how would you say it?
It was a horrible relationship. He was horrible to her. He was a monster. He was very violent.
Okay.
So that was shocking for me to hear. Like, I shouldn't say shocking. I mean, I've witnessed abuse for my mom and dad when I was a child. So I witnessed my side of it. I didn't realize it started way back when. And that, she was trying to escape the violence.
What surprised me, and I think we did touch this a little bit last time, if it shocked you the way things happen, it didn't shock me, but I'm still thinking, she's your hero. And she comes across as quite a woman. And she took the entire family from Guyana to Canada. She knew the character of her husband.
Yeah.
What made her stick with him for such a long time and still loved him?
That is the age-old question.
That's what I want to know.
That's the age-old question. Why do abused individuals stay with their partners? There's many, many reasons why. And in my mom's case, the story that I'm telling myself is she probably didn't think she was good enough for anything else or anyone else. He was all she knew, and she loved him till the day she died. Weird.
You call it weird, I call it fascinating. Because
it's fascinating.
Yeah, because she came to Canada, brought her family back. The last person was it her husband, your father, and then she worked, she provided. It's not easy starting afresh in a new country, you don't know anything about.
Right.
From the weather to the society to the way that to the language, the way they speak.
Yeah.
It's not that it's English, but it's different.
Right, it's a different dialect.
The way they operate, work ethic, everything. Yeah, it's a fascinating, and that's what I'd like to find out more as we go back.
Yeah. I see David has his hand up.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just love to participate. I think I learn best that way. In the spirit of defining just enough of the character, I don't know what the official term is, synopsis, kind of a character summary, precondition, inbound to actually writing the book. I heard what you said, and I felt it immediately. And I'm playing with that because I'm up against something similar, Eileen. How much to divulge, how much mystery to leave within that summary introduction of the character. I heard you say, wow, you did further research. I don't want to, I may get the words wrong, but I think it surprised you what you came up with. So maybe you saved some of that surprise for the dialogue, like Joost was saying, right? Start to explain why we stay put when you would question why we do that, with someone who's abusive. Show it through the character development. I'm asking a question now to Paul and to the group. Do you just kind of start with a precondition, spark an intrigue, like, wow, this is going to be intense. I have to read this so I can appreciate why she did it, why we do this, is that kind of what we're trying to do here, Paulin? We're trying to...
I think it is.
Good question.
Go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I said it's a good question. I want to know the answer too.
The moment you take anyone, it doesn't matter they're real or not. Doesn't matter you know them or not, you know them very well or not, and put them into a book. In a book, fiction or non-fiction, they become characters. You can shape them whichever way you want. But the real character, they need to be believable, they need to be realistic. Therefore you can't, you need to stay faithful to the truth. But how you portray them, what you reveal one at a time, that's up to you. That's what you want. So you want the reader to see that character as close as possible as you saw that character back then and now. That's and you
Okay.
need to leave out as much as you can any personal judgments. Put it in such a way that the reader starts to have to, everyone judges, but let the reader do that judgment rather than try to influence the reader. Does that answer the question, David?
It does. We're getting close. I know this is complex and I'm a first timer, so I'll keep grinding it out. But yeah, I think I understand this exercise to be at least twofold. Get clear in your own mind your starting conditions and your starting biases, so you don't get too deep into the dialogue and down the wrong rabbit hole. And then also, like you said last time, Paul, if we do a reasonable job with this character summary statement, it could even land on the back of the book. It could be part of a TV script. It could eventually be strong enough to say, here's why you should go see the movie or read the book, right? So, okay, that's kind of how I'm trying to look at the stopping point. I'm trying not to get, I'm already 3 paragraphs into my summary of one character.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. But also, it doesn't matter what you write. Biography, bio, fiction, non-fiction, it doesn't matter. You always put into the characters part of yourself, part of the people you know, part of those people you call, you look up to, but even more so without unconsciously is those who influenced you, shaped you, but in a way that you'd call it hard way. It's fascinating how this is, how all the experience, what you learned, and what you have interaction with other people around you, find their way into your characters, whoever they are. There's always part of those people you learn from, you interacted with, you clashed with. Great.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I guess it depends on if you're more truly fiction or truly memoir, but I could see us, I'll call it like I see it, split personality, right? Take all those aspects of you and spread them across different characters.
You can,
drop the cards on the pile and see how it begins to play out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice thing.
Thank you.
That's anything else, Aileen, you'd like to?
No, I'm gonna let everybody else have an opportunity.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
That's okay. And Wida, would you like to go next?
Yes, I would like to go next. Thank you.
Awesome. Let me stop sharing this. So there we go.
So the main character is also my mom, but she's not my hero. She's my nemesis. And as I was creating the character outline, I wasn't really only focused on her, but really all of the main characters in my memoir, right? So when I think about her character, I think about her being born during the Depression, that she grew up in a small family, but you know, everybody back then, you know, is poor, trying to survive. And I think about her leaving home at 12 because she was tired of being poor.
What do you mean leaving home?
Meaning I'm leaving home. I need to go find work so that I can take care of myself. That she
At
left.
12. At
Yeah.
12. Well,
So I see someone who is very independent, very determined, very, you know, she has a short fuse. She doesn't tolerate things that she doesn't like very long. And when I think about one of my early memories concerning my mother and my father, I remember being maybe 3 years old, hiding under the kitchen table with my brother, who's 18 months older than me, because my parents were in this ruckus fight, throwing chairs and, throwing furniture. And I think my mother stabbed my father in the chest with a fork. That's one of my first memories. And so telling my story, but is really telling her story. What does it mean to be born on an island during the Depression and having to leave home at 12 to work and to find a job with a wealthy socialite who basically is your owner, because she's working for room and board in this situation. She finds herself getting pregnant at 16 with this Chinese man who was a photographer, and her owner, who's a wealthy woman, is delighted because the baby is going to be half Chinese. And so she takes the baby from my mother and she raises the baby as her own. So, and that's just the beginning. I think you read the first chapter.
Yeah.
The way that I come into the world now I'm the fourth child, and my father is overseas. My mother is I think he told her, don't call me if it's another girl, because she's already had 3 girls and I'm the fourth girl. And she tells him it's a boy. So that's how I enter the world. Right? So although it's unique to me, it's not a unique story, because I believe a lot of women come into the world where they're rejected because they're women. And, if you go to China, there's a whole policy, or there was a policy back in the day, the one-child rule. And if it's a girl, sometimes they get discarded or whatever happens to them. So that's part of my story. And so to develop my mother's character, my father's character, they had no business being together, right? And so, as Eileen was saying, why does someone stay when there's all this abuse? But because we're not born necessarily with instructions on how to have relationships, people get into these relationships and the children become collateral. So I see my mother as a very strong person, but also mean-spirited, vindictive, and had no problem using her children as pawns when it came to her fight with her husband. So it's very complex character, and how to crawl from underneath all of that rubble. And I feel that that's what I've been doing most of my adult life.
A person is a product of the time and the place they were part of. Understanding the time and the place, what conditioned that person, the family, then we understand their actions. And those dictate, shape, influence to a large degree how they react to different circumstances later on. And that's particularly when it comes to family members. It's quite a story, isn't it? This black lady from the Caribbean, marrying this man, this Chinese man, it's fascinating, and particularly at the time. And I have only one question, actually. How much of this, because you were talking to her in third person, almost a person not related to you, but then how much of this, the summary you made of her, is based on 100% cold, logical reasoning, and how much of it at this point has a personal feeling It's about striking a balance between these two, you see.
I think it's 60-40, 60% factual
Mhm.
and 40% feeling. Because
Well,
I'm
yeah.
basing it on stories I was told by her, by my cousin, by my sister. A lot of it was told by my mother. She told me, you know, or my eyewitness.
What would you like? What would you hope the reader to walk away with at the end of the book, as far as with what impression, what picture of your mother do you hope, do you want all the reader to walk away with?
That people are very complex, that she probably has an undiagnosed mental illness, and, you know, not necessarily to hate her, because I don't hate her, but to understand that when people are not in touch with themselves and who they are, and when they lack empathy and they lack compassion for themselves and for others, it's really difficult for them to raise healthy human beings.
Okay. Okay. It's not easy, is it? To
Mhm.
shape character, you very close. But maybe we're using a different, not the right term. Developing character, maybe it's not the right term. It's maybe shaping it, maybe painting it, portraying it. Great. That's good. Thank you.
Is that what you're looking for?
Uh, no, not 100%.
Okay,
Eh,
say more. What's missing?
Well, no, it's not that anything is missing. Let me rephrase the question. Do you want to influence the reader from beginning to the end as to what you want the reader to feel and think about your mother, or would you like the reader to make his or her own decision based on how the whole story comes together?
The latter.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Because to my thinking is being born where she was born, the way she was treated, having to leave at 12, all these things do leave a mark on someone's character. They don't excuse them, or they make it better or worse when it comes to what happens later on. But understanding those, I believe, is quite important in how to treat them during the story. Yeah.
Mhm.
Great. Anything else? Well, thank you.
I know I want to read this. That's intense.
Yeah.
I was feeling it.
Yeah, and me too. Especially since my mom was my hero and yours was not. It'd be interesting to see and really share the differences between the two.
And I think that's just so awesome how life is designed. There's just yin and yang everywhere. And it's just so interesting that on the same group call, we have that dynamic. It's life is really,
Nothing.
even though it hurts us, it's cool.
Yeah. Nothing is more exciting than examples from real life. Fiction can ever replicate, imitate. It can try to imitate, but no, find better examples in real life.
Can I say something?
Absolutely, sir.
You know, I realize often, like, if you do like nonfiction, you can never come up with certain stories, you know? Because the real life, it's like, yeah, it's like you cannot imagine that it really happened.
No, actually,
You know, like you have to have a big brain to come up with that kind of
yeah.
fantasy. Maybe I in the future can do it. I don't know.
Hold on a moment. Okay, let's say, look, thank you, David. That's fantastic. You're going to be next, but let me say something here. Yours tonight and Ife. Where is Ife? Ife,
Yes, he's there.
Ife is helping us with the story. So Joost is writing his bio, and it's so trying to put together. They take part of that the bio is writing and put it together into the co-author into that chapter. His story is going to be part of. So let me know. You be the judge if anyone can make this up. Do you want me, Joost? Would you like me to read the first two paragraphs?
Yeah, I think you got a excellent voice, so try on.
No, thank you. You know how to. You know how to.
Yeah, I know how to please everybody.
Okay. Okay, and then tell me if anyone can make this up. Anyone can come up with this. So bear with me. It's fascinating. Yeah, so I'm going to go for which version? I mean, incomplete story. Okay, version 3. Okay, let me see it. So if people surprise you or not, they always do. And
Mhm.
you haven't taken it out, have you? Bear with me.
I'm bearing, I'm caring, everything I do here.
No, you do. Bear with me. Okay, now. Okay, let me take this. Bear with me, guys, because this
I
is
think you should take the title first. The title is good.
Death Row Baby. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So let's do this, and I'll read it to you very quickly. So I was born in 1971 in Amsterdam, a beautiful city adorned with 100 kilometers of canals surrounded by historic structures, quaint squares, and narrow medieval streets. My father, Leen Nauta, an eccentric school principal, was also a member of a popular local band called the Clifters. My mother, you said Jose?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jose.
Jose Nauta was a
It's like Josephine, like that.
Yeah, Josefina, yeah. And stay-at-home mother with excellent taste for art and music. And she was blessed with perfect family, with kind husband, daughter, and son. She was absorbed with feeding, bathing. Is it umbilical cord, diaper changing, that she failed to realize that, unlike other babies, I had a complete lack of muscle control. My mother did notice it, and whenever someone pointed it out, she always had a ready answer. So they go and check it. And what happens is, it turns out, so a quick examination lasting me a couple of minutes revealed that what I call my preliminary report indicates a terminal diagnosis. So he's got this condition called spinal muscular atrophy. So at the time, where's that part? What did you do with the part where your father, it took the toll on your father?
I took the toll of my father, or what? I don't know.
Your father, yeah, because I want to get to the father.
Oh,
Yeah,
listen.
okay, so, and this revelation shocked a very calm family. In spite of it all, my mom tried to make my stay at home as comfortable as possible. But everyday tasks became increasingly arduous for her, and by the time I hit my preschool years, she was pretty worn out, and her untreated schizophrenia was getting worse. On the other hand, my father was struggling to balance his work, the band, and the increased financial burden. On the top of it, he had just come out as gay. You can't come up with this.
You know, I tried to write it, but it was
You can't come up with it. I mean, you can't make this up.
It already happened, man. It already happened.
It's great, isn't it? You got to love
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
No, and to come back at the two ladies with the mom.
Yeah. So it's fascinating.
Like my mother was my mother was for all those years I really hated my mother. And now I love her to death, you know?
Yeah.
No, because they had this schizophrenia and I was like a little kid.
Yeah.
So I thought that, yeah, you're fucking nuts, you know? So, but now, you know, you take care of your own mom.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you take care of your mom, and you see her like, you know, without her, I would not be around you people here. So, moms are very important in life. So,
Yeah,
we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah,
there you go. In every family, aren't they? They're all everywhere. It's not,
true.
but that did it for me. When you said when I read it the first time, and on the top of it, he had come out as gay. He plays in a band called the Clifters. You can't make that up.
No, it's
brilliant.
crazy.
It's brilliant.
It's crazy because all the women love him, all the girls run after him.
Yeah, of course. He was in a band.
Yeah, you know, but yeah, the guy didn't know what to do with it. Yeah, so yeah,
Great.
bear with him. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, and then there's some good interaction dialogue there as well. So it's really, really good. Great. Thank
Can I
you.
share can I
Thank
just
you.
share something that tickled the nerve there for me?
Yeah. David,
Mhm.
off you go. It's your turn.
I
David,
like to
please.
affirm. I don't know if you've noticed that about me. I like to affirm people. And at the same time, I think I'm teaching myself or learning something by doing that.
Mm,
Your comment about your dear mother, that would make me really dig deep into the book. Anytime there's the yin yang effect where hate, love, hate, forgot, remembered, known and lost, you know, I personally find that very compelling about life in general. I've already admitted on prior calls, I'm not a fictional reader. So what the hell am I doing trying to write fiction? And final point, I love what you said at the beginning, Yost. It emboldens me. It gives me courage to just speak to my own direct experiences and fictionalize them a little bit. I think
Yeah.
that's such a keen observation that you have to just be like a one in a zillion kind of mind to be able to write that way. But you can easily write what you've experienced and then just play with it, right? So I think that makes me very confident going forward. And I appreciate you, Yost, for saying that. You gave me confidence to just go write my own experiences and make them
Yeah.
more entertaining, you know, at the same time. So,
yeah. Yeah.
Entertainment is also a part of the book. It should be entertainment, you know, it should
It
not be
has to be.
funny,
It has to be.
but you have to also be eager to drawn into the story and read.
But the interesting thing, and thank you, David, for coming up with this, because, and also
Yeah.
David Elson, David Wan, and I have discussed these things in great detail as we were going back and forth. To write, to build a story based on real life, on your experiences, it's easier than fiction because you've got material already there. On the other hand, to shape that story of yours, the real life one, to turn it into a book, into a story, it's harder than when you put together a fictional story and try to, because you can shape it whichever way you want. However, when it comes to the story of real life, you need to strike a balance. They're both about striking balance. They're both very, very good. They're both about writing what you know and what you want and what you feel. But it's a balance we strike between one and the other.
Can I say something to that extent? Because this is really important for me, minimally. I'm in the latter scenario. I'm gonna write from the heart. A lot of people have come to realize that the heart thinks as well. It's got 40,000 thinking cells, and they are non-dual. They don't store yes or no. They don't dither. They just know what they felt, right? So if you write from your heart, you're writing from a place of unwavering truth. But I think I'm hearing you suggest, Paul, if you write in that mode of from the heart out, and you're going to convert it into storylines and try to make it edutainment, that you're going to probably dither because now you're in the brain. You're going to have doubt. You're going to probably have too many options and you're going to have to pick and go. I think that's what I'm hearing. Whereas if I start from the brain, I can just pick and go because I'm not heart attached to the characters. If I'm starting from the brain, it's just whatever, man. It's Dahlem. It's you know, these characters in these fantasy worlds, and I'll make them do whatever the hell I want them to do. right?
Yeah.
I'm not personally attached. Whereas if you start from the heart, there's like a sense of authenticity. I hate that word. Remaining true to what you did experience, and then the effect of turning that into characters and challenging your biases. And I don't know, is that kind of what you mean?
It's putting logic. Then you wanted to strike a balance between emotion and logic. So you start
Yeah.
with emotion and you bring in logic. And then what the key is to really shift that balance back and forth. With fiction, it's the same, but when you start the same because you structure it beforehand. You start with the story, you make it up. So you use a lot of your logical, but then as you go back and forth, you need to put more emotions, see those emotions, true, real life emotions, how people react, your characters react in certain circumstances. It's got to be natural. So it's always about striking that balance between logic and emotion. And that's what creates the story that regardless of being fiction or non-fiction, it pulls the reader by the hand. The reader is glued there. And then what you do is, as you do so, you try to become your reader, put yourself into the reader's shoes and what they're going to see, what they're going to feel. It's fascinating. It's quite something. Yeah.
I'm kind of predicting if I get more than one reader, right? This is where Paul comes to the equation, especially, right? Helping us find readers. I suspect I'm going to have a couple of readers, whether it's just that one review that keeps you up at night and makes you mad, or someone who challenges you at a book reading, should we be so fortunate, right? I think I'm going to have a life-changing moment through this where it's like, you know what? It's not exactly how you see it, David.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a heart-driven approach to writing. Yeah.
If you remember, when we started and you went through designing your ID reader avatar, you produced two different ID readers and you said you want to go, and I said, okay, fair enough, but maybe let's merge them into one, and then later on, as the book progresses, we can turn them into two or possibly books here. So yeah, it does make sense. Thank you, David.
All right.
Would you like to share anything else, or shall we move to the next person? David, you okay?
Oh no, sorry. I thought you were asking Yost. No, I'm good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Jenny, do you want to share anything? Do you want to talk about any of your characters?
Sure. Mine's my mother as well. As I was sharing, getting early reader feedback, one of the questions was what character they wanted to know more about, and my mother was one of them. So before we even spoke about mothers today, I started writing down some things. So my book is a memoir. It's specifically my sexual, spiritual memoir. And my mother is my biggest supporter. And I grew up with my dad. My mom has 5 children with my father, and she left when I was 3. And my oldest sister was 11. And we saw her about 6 days a year. So 3 in the winter and 3 in the summer. And she, back in the day, used to explain that she was good at having babies and baking bread. And my mother is absolutely gorgeous, short, dark hair, bright blue eyes. She is so flirtatious. She's always been a massive, massive flirt in everything that she does. I take after her in that way. But she definitely is a queen of flirtation. And when my parents got married, beforehand, my dad was, let's explain it this way. My mother is very liberal and my dad is very conservative. And when they got married, my dad was still very playful and sexual. And then as soon as they had babies, he stopped the sexual part. There's like this mother whore complex that once you're a mother, you're not allowed to have sex. But she's such a sexual person that she knew they tested out open marriage. It didn't work. Their marriage ended. And she left that knowing that she says this is like unconscious and conscious at the same time. She left 5 children between the ages 3 and 11 because she knew they would be better off, or we would be better off with a happy mother versus an unhappy present mother.
Mm.
And it's like she was self-sacrificing, but she also knew that she couldn't find another husband to take care of her and 5 children, because back then women didn't have jobs really. And so she grew up in Oklahoma, which is a very conservative place, so she's never really fit in there either. And as we grew up, you know, we only saw her 3 days in the winter and 3 days in the summer, but she was trying to teach us things about spirituality or sexuality, but it always came off as like, my mom is weird, like, because we didn't have that connection, and she wasn't really healed around it. And so we slut shamed her a lot behind her back, not to her face. What else do I have here? She's now an entrepreneur. After she left, she owned restaurants. She's been an interior designer with her own company. She's 80 years old right now, and she works 60 hours a week in interior design, flirting her way through the whole thing, having men serve her, like,
Bless her.
Yep. The men will come over and change her light bulbs for her. Like, it's like amazing to watch. She's had 3 husbands, all of which she married when they were 26 or 27. The first time she was 19, the second time she was 35, and the third time she was 45. So she kept getting older, but they all stayed 26 or 27 when she was marrying them.
She has a system.
Something attractive about that 27.
Yeah. But the carry on if you carry on.
Yeah, just the last thing is that she, her last husband, the youngest one, who was 19 years younger, he had an affair with her best friend who got pregnant, and so she's been divorced like 15, 20 years now, and she hasn't had a relation. She's had one relationship in there with a younger man again, but they didn't get married. So she's been single for like 12 years, and she's finally settling into who she is.
There's a chapter in your book called Diesel Fuel.
Mm-hmm.
It's what gave me a very good description of your mother, of your relationship with your mother. And if okay with you, I'd like to share with the rest a couple of paragraphs. And actually, if you wouldn't mind, I'll tell you which one to read. Please read the first 2, and then the one Christmas present. So I'll take you, and it made me think, try to picture your mother, picture you there waiting for, so bear with me. That's the one. Yeah, off you go. Can you see it? Shall I make it bigger?
I can make it bigger. Which one do you want me to start?
So the first 2 here, I'll make them, turn them into blue.
Okay,
and then this one here, because I thought this is very, very good. So it's that child, the child's impression and description and feeling of that child parent relation. So off you go when you're ready.
Okay, let me get it. There we go. The smell of diesel always reminds me of my mother. I adored my mother. To see her, I would hop on a 10-hour bus ride through the Colorado mountains. The bus ride being long and school vacation short, my visits had to be brief. I remember spending 6 days a year with her from 3 until my freshman year in high school. 3 days in the summer, 3 in the winter. According to my mother, we spent more time together. Even if we did, it couldn't have been much more.
And then let's go for this one here. Bear with me. Yeah. Off you go.
Okay. Christmas presents from my mom always arrived on the Trailways bus. We would eagerly eagerly wait on the sidewalk inside the depot with our dad. The terminal was saturated with the sweet smell of diesel mixed with the pungency of grime. The concrete was black with filth the buses had picked up on the road, layered with sediment dropped by greasy billows of exhaust fumes. As the bus driver opened the hatch, only a mishmash of tan, hard leather suitcases was visible. The weary passengers waited impatiently for the grumpy driver to unload the luggage. Finally, several large cardboard boxes revealed themselves. Our mother's love had arrived. Diesel, grime, giant metal bus frames, suitcases, cardboard boxes, crowds of exhausted travelers. This was how we received touch from our mother.
Yeah, so it's simple, but I think you made me, I thought that you made me be there with you, see it and try get that and understand that feeling of, yeah, it's fascinating. And that's how I started to create an image of your mother.
The first time I've read that last line without tears in my eyes.
Yeah, I remember you told me. No, it's and it's important to describe persons and characters, no matter who they are, fictional or not, from the eyes of the person down there at that age, in that place, what he or she thought and felt at the time. And then you go back and forth with the reader. So you put logic when you see it from where you are, the narrator kicks in, but then the character, you, because you're part of that, then you describe what you felt, what you saw back then. It's fascinating. So thank you, Jenny. Any other?
That was really fascinating. At the beginning, when you first started, Paul, I didn't get the diesel reference. I didn't get it. But as you read through, Jenny, I was like, okay, I get it. It was great for the reader to get that understanding of what diesel meant for you and why you chose that word diesel. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect.
And I don't want to sound weird, but my book and
Go for it. Go
understand
for
my
it.
weirdness, but one of the things I write about and one of the things I've helped people in the past is what I call the energy bridge. And I had an energy bridge as you read that. I would be so bold as to say your mom was visiting you in that moment. That's why I couldn't look it up. I got a strong jolt. So
But the beetje is dat er nog?
My mom and I would both believe that. So totally great to hear that.
You need to make them, paint them who they are. And you do them through your feelings, and through description.
Een bitterbroodje weer roosteren.
Say it again, Joost?
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about the disturbance.
No worries. It's about describing them, their physical features, their characteristics. That's one way. But there's describing them through the feelings, by placing the reader in your shoes, in and feeling, having them feel what they feel, because the imagination starts to kick in. And I try to see myself in that bus, in the bus depot. I remember waiting for my parents. Same coming, but bus coming from another part. It's quite something. It's that unspoken, that unseen description, which is very, very good. Yeah, so thank you. And thank you, David. Great. Okay. David Elston, David too. Would you please?
sure.
Yeah, I've just been absolutely fascinated by what we've listened to, and these really interesting, but it's these really interesting mothers, and they're very unusual. Well, I think in many cases they're obviously very individual people, and I think I particularly enjoyed. I remember reading it before when you circulated, Jenny. I remember reading about that and being intrigued by the diesel again, which is Aileen's point. Why have you said diesel in the first line, but then you realize why later on? And I think for people to explain their mothers, it's obviously so interesting that mothers have a huge impact on us all in our different ways, and the dads as well. And I'd never thought of writing about either of my parents in that way, but now I suddenly think perhaps I should do so. But that's one point. The other point is I'm writing fiction, and the story depends on one or two coincidences at various places. So the problem I have in my mind, and Paul and I have talked about this a lot, is are these coincidences actually sufficiently realistic? Could this really happen? Or is the person reading the book going to say, well, I think that's just too much of a coincidence that this happened. It's too much of a coincidence that no one spotted that guy on that train journey and worked out who he might be. So I've had these things, but then I think when you look at these stories, these real stories, real life stories, they are exceptional. Those things. Just's story is, that's intriguing. The whole thing, his mother.
It is intriguing.
A lazy baby, and you think, could that really happen? Well, it did. It's not a question, could that really happen? It really did happen. And then to cap it all at this very extraordinary situation, Just, you were explaining, your dad comes out as gay. That adds another strange thing. Just wants to say something, so I'll
go for it. Where's Just?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, off you go.
Thank you for your remark. What I would like to say is like, maybe I go back in time, but the lady with the diesel, when you write, I wish that I write a story that you can really talk about all your senses, your hearing, your smelling, because that's what triggers everything in your memory, it always relates to something. I was raised with a lot of music, so I like to incorporate some music in my story because it reflects a certain period. But what I'm trying to say is when we describe a character or a situation, all the surroundings that make that situation happen are very relevant for the reader, I think. How you think about that, Paul?
Now, I'll give you an example from your story. Then we go back to David again.
Yes.
When you were put to the foster care, because your mother and your father couldn't, they couldn't, she had to be taken in a psychiatric hospital. Then, so what you did was you were on the wheelchair and you put a cast area on the wheelchair and have that cast area blasting through as you were going up and down. You impressed also those fellas in the council estates. They say, hey, yo, bro, that's cool. That says something about the character in this case here, the music and the interaction relation you had with music and also with the surroundings. So
so I can relate to, it's like I want to incorporate a little bit more at that, because certain things like the smell of the hospital ward,
Oh yeah, all that one.
You never forget it. You understand me?
But then there's something between your father coming out as gay and the comment David made earlier that it was
it's crazy.
It affected you big time.
Well,
at the time.
I didn't become gay, so yeah.
but that's from your book. So,
with all due respect, I don't hate nobody, but
it's fascinating that in the book you very fair to both your parents. You very balanced. You let the reader see them, portray them, picture them.
They really are, yeah.
Even your auntie, bless her, I like her, the one who decided to walk through the park how to break thinking, taking the time, how to break it to the mother. So looking at the children playing around and being happy and then thinking, this guy is not going to be one of them. It's one thing to say, to explain it, describe it. It's quite another to take the reader, put the reader through the shoes of your auntie, and that brings me back to David's character, Lee. Lee is a very, very innocent guy. And one thing, David, that made me it made that story even more believable. It doesn't matter if it's improbable. There are lots of probabilities. Most books are lots of improbabilities, but he's worried about how his mother would do. She was in hospital. He's worried about what she was going to say, whether she was going to last, how. That made him quite believable, quite down to earth. It makes Lee someone I can associate myself with. Most people can't.
True.
And it's these parts every now and then you put his thoughts about his mother, his thoughts about his father, and how he was worried, but he wanted to see the possibility to see them. It makes him very, very realistic, very believable. The events, whether they are impossible or improbable, life is improbable. Life is full of impossibilities.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, back to you, David.
Yes, yeah. So I think so I found it really fascinating with us going through these real life situations where I'm dealing with fiction. But it suddenly, while you were speaking, while everyone was speaking, it brought to mind something which I think is to do with literature. And I did English literature at school, in junior school scene and the rest of it. And I quite like poetry. And I remember we had a discussion when we were around 16, 17, and someone who didn't really like poetry, they didn't understand poetry, why can't you just write a story instead of having to make things rhyme, that sort of attitude. And he said, after all, poetry's never saved anyone's life. And I remember this and talked about it at home. And I remember my father laughing. And that's he didn't say anything about it. He just laughed at that. And then as I grew older and sort of learned more, my father was a prisoner of war in the Second World War in the Far East, in the Japanese prisoner of war on what was called the Death Railway. So it was a very, very grim time. He had a terrible time there. But he survived, and he came back, and he regained his health, and he lived till he was nearly 100. So he survived. But one of the things he had with him in his small amount of baggage he had was a poetry book. And when he was older, including when he was in his 80s, he could recite poetry without looking at the book. He could recite huge amounts of poetry. And we found he'd been interviewed about being in the war, and we found his interview notes and so on. And I sometimes think, well, maybe poetry can save your life. It's just a thought I had.
Yeah.
And so now this has triggered me writing. I should write about this. I should write a bit of non-fiction about how poetry can save your life.
Poetry in
so
your
I'll
family.
leave that little thought in there.
Yeah,
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's good. And Joost, you have published in Dutch poetry, haven't you?
Yeah, I wrote myself a poetry bundle.
Okay, good.
It's not too great. It's not too great, but it was some form of self-therapy, So yes, I did, and I'm also after that I write a book with y'all, and then
We should call that story of yours "Sex, Drugs, Booze" on a wheelchair, and a stereo on a wheelchair.
But listen, if I can tell you that it's really so, but my biggest achievement, I produced some album in my studio.
Oh, good on you.
So I think art in the broadest form, writing, poetry, music, it really can save people's life, you know?
This is fascinating because I'm building a series of classical poetry, a selection of those, because it's good to propagate it. I don't like the word propagate, but that's the only word that I could think now.
No, but I can relate with what David
And-
said. It's like it's like some people read the Bible and some read poetry.
Yeah, but we have or at least as a publisher, I have a responsibility to make people make people see poetry for what it is. So the Rubaiyat, which is already published as a book, print book, and audio book, is out there. I'll send it to you so you can get it. Shakespeare Sonnets selection is already done in 3 versions. It's going to go out soon. Christina Rossetti's, one of the most famous writers, poets of the 19th century in England. It's a collection of those. That's out. And it's the audiobook has been done with 2 male-female voice, so they go back and forth. And I'm working on selection of other classicals gradually, so we'll add more because it's very, very important to do that. It's amazing when it's reading poetry, how it helps, how it finds its way into your writing one way or another. Yeah, so Ife, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, I would. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I would like to add that I believe nonfiction or fiction, really shaping the characters would be determined by how well you can describe the characters, how well you can, tell their stories, and how you want the readers to understand the stories. When I can remember, I think maybe the 2nd chapter or 3rd chapter, he just wanted to add a lot of good vibes and energy to his mother's character. And he also did that with Patricia and some other characters. So if it's nonfiction, if it's fiction, if it's a character in your head or someone really, even alive, you can decide to, add some switch up to it. Just don't lie, because if it's nonfiction and you're writing about someone and then if she's reading, she's like, oh, really, did I do that? But you can still describe them, and that would shape the character. And really, what shapes the character actually shapes the book. If the character is well presented, the whole book comes out very, very, very much better. So yeah, I think that should help in shaping the characters of the books.
I think so. And also it goes the other way around. Those characters, what happened to them, they provide fantastic material for a story. Your story. David's father with a poetry book and being in prison of war. There's a story there already. Now that David mentioned that one, then I see parts of one of the main characters in the book. The main basically character alongside Liz in the book, part of it without. So, and or Oida's mother, the way she got married and had the child with the Chinese guy. It's fascinating. There's a story is in David number 2. He wrote a very, very good, fantastic article about a neighbor he had who passed away, and he was a great fella. There's a story there. And you can dig deep into the life of those people, and you will find amazing things. And what you do is you pick something that is outstanding and turn it into a story. So once character gives many ideas for different. So it's this amazing way of one's life and what happens to them. Really, you can't draw a line and say this 50% is fiction, 50% non-fiction. It's all real, so long as it's real. You can create anything you want from that. And talking about how important it is for whatever you create, your childhood, your parents, because of book we're putting together, part of which your story is, and if we're working on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 or 7 of those, the running theme, the main thread, the common thread is the mother or the father. It's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And I didn't realize this until we started talking last time in our call about developing characters and then character exercises preparing for this. So long as they are realistic, believable, fiction, non-fiction, they find likable, let the reader decide that. Let the reader do it. Great. Anything else you'd like to add?
I would just like to say that I'm just finding these sessions fascinating. So I've been, and very helpful. I've been writing this book for about for about 10 years now, but I really have no effing clue what I'm doing. Right? So it's fascinating to me to learn from others. And from you, Paul, you've been like a godsend in trying to put this together. And the way that we met was very interesting. It was just so random how we met each other. And he just reached out on LinkedIn and thought, have you ever thought of writing a book? And I'm like, as a matter of fact, I have. Right. And that's how it all started. But just listening to each and every one of you has really, I've got like a ton of notes here. I just realized that my mom, my hero, but I don't nearly have enough to explain to people about why she's my hero. Because I sort of jumped into her and did this, and then I jumped into my dad and his relationship with her. But there's this whole other part of my mom that I haven't really put on paper yet. So thank you, Jenny, for sharing your stuff and Joost too. It's just there's just so much more that I can add to give the reader an idea of why she's my hero, and maybe she could become their hero too. So
yeah, it's very good actually. Thank you, Aileen. Going back to David number 1 character, he's got a mother and a father. He's a product of those two people, and there's a lot in him from those two, his father and his mother, and I can see more his mother in him than his father. And yeah, it's fascinating when you think about these things. It's a product. Your character is a product of time and place, family, and the values around that family. It's never ceases to amaze me how what we write is a lot of what we put into our characters or the events they go through are shaped by our parents, the interaction with our parents and their surroundings. And I'm realizing this now even more as we go back and forth in this. It's fascinating. Great. Okay. Let's then wrap it up. Discuss as to what we're going to do next time. And David has volunteered very kindly to put a presentation for us for our next session. So I'd like David to take it from here and to explain to us what we're talking about.
Right. Well, what I'd like to do with everyone's indulgence is it's something Paul and I, and probably Paul has mentioned this to others of you as well, I'm sure. I've chosen in my mind 3 pieces of music and 3 paintings. 2 are probably what you call very famous paintings. One is the other one's by a very eminent artist, but it's not a famous painting. And I think they all tell a story. The 3 pieces of music tell a story, not straight away. It's not like a black and white words on a page where the story becomes quite clear. You have to sort of think through them and develop them. And again, with the paintings, I think they have an impact, but then you have to work out and develop the story that's there. And in the case of some of them, we know what the artist was thinking of when he painted it, so it becomes clear what the story is. And there's something that Paul has discussed with me, and again probably some of you, is there's actually a sort of format with all paintings about where the center of the story lies on the canvas usually. And I think it's very interesting to see how three completely different, I would say they're completely different paintings, how they impact. So what I'd like to do is take you through each bit of music and then the paintings. In a sense, the paintings are easy because I think we can arrange to share the screen and talk about the painting. I think we could arrange that. The music, what I was going to do, Paul, is just circulate in advance the three pieces of music. So if people could be bothered, they don't have to, obviously, but if people could be bothered to listen to three different bits of music before we meet, then we can
Surprise me, David. Surprise me.
Yeah.
Surprise me, David.
Surprise you. Sorry, surprise you. Yeah. Okay, see what we can do. And then we can talk. And I think what I'd like to do is just, without taking up too much time, just explain what I see in them and why I think they're a story. And then other people would. And I will not mind at all. I really will not mind at all if someone says, "I'm sorry, I just find that bit of music utterly dull, doesn't mean anything to me." Or if you look at one of the paintings and say, "I think I could do that. I don't think it's that clever a painting." That doesn't matter at all. I think the thing that matters is, are they a story? How do they develop a story? And do they help us think of how we would write? Sorry, I'm using my hands an awful lot. I shouldn't.
Yeah, that's good. It's about imagining, picturing, yeah, that absolutely.
So that's what I would plan to do. And
So David, could I don't want to change the exercise. I'm trying to affirm what I just heard. In my own endeavor, I plan to use music. Like Yost rightly said, life is multidimensional. So if we can tingle every sense, maybe we reach people. The way I'm planning to use music is to politely suggest, here's an example and how it ties into the emotions I hope you're feeling at this point in your book. But it's incumbent upon you to go find your own song, right? Because we all have different histories, right?
This is brilliant. This is brilliant, David. Maybe if that's okay with David, number one, that might be a very good exercise for all involved, whoever wants to is going to join us. After you do the presentation, but leading up as well, to maybe share with us a piece of music or a painting or anything that it's about a story that really you can see. You see that storyline, you see how and why. Because that's all about, it's all about telling a story. It's all about putting the reader, the listener, the viewer, making the main point of that story, that picture, that music, and letting the reader then be part of it. Yeah, maybe that's just a suggestion.
Yeah. You and I can talk about it, Paul, about the best way we can fix it up.
Yeah. So if that's okay for us next topic, that would be fantastic. In fact, this is a brilliant way. Next session, what we do is then any of the authors should decide what the topic of the next call should be, because it's easier, because it's about, not easier, but it's very useful. We deal with topics that we're dealing now, and then what I'll do is, depending on the topic, then I'll prepare some, maybe a few things to put a few things together, so we can yeah, absolutely, why not? If that's okay with the rest of the group, then I think it's a brilliant idea for 2 weeks.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect.
Could I just interject something here? I know we're up against time. I admitted to Paul inbound that I was running late on my part of this exercise. I surprise myself sometimes how quickly I can write. I actually do have something ready. To honor our time, I could just post it in the thread and you could read it.
Or how long is it?
It's 500, 600 words.
Okay. But if the rest of the people, the group want, they're okay for you reading and sharing with us, then why not?
My personal opinion would be to read it. I'm not the best, I don't have the best voice, but I think you get more emotion having it read.
You got a great voice, sir.
I'm looking for some feedback. If you were the script reader, would you buy this, storyline? Would you want to pick the book up? It's important for everything else that follows, so that's why I'm
Okay.
asking.
Yeah, look, I'm up for it. If the rest of the group are up for it, 500 words is not going to take more than 2-3 minutes to read anyway.
Okay. Are you
Okay.
okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay.
All right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a first draft, so yeah, bear with me. Again, just a reminder, the premise of my book is that I'm trying to counter the prevailing way of living on this planet. It's instead of life being linear and progressing towards some big conclusion, foregone often. Our way of life as indigenous peoples in the US, Turtle Island, is circular. We've been here before and here we are again. We're just energy patterns, and I'll see you again and I'll see you again. Okay, so that's the premise of what I'm about to read. This is I don't know if this is the main character, but for now, just try to have that in mind.
Would you like
Taylor
to
Jordan.
read out? Would you like to share the screen as well, or would you like just to read for us to listen?
Maybe just reading would be less
Go for it.
distracting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it. We're all yours.
Okay, so this is the summary of TJ, Taylor Jordan, Jordan Taylor, Taylor Jordan, man or woman. That's by design. TJ has led the common conformist experience within a society designed around emphasis on self and self-obsession, and net worth, usually defined as liquidity, legacy, and passing along of wealth to the next of kin, even though TJ has none and has no plans for kin. TJ questions the core themes of existence as insane and explores the mysterious grace and gratitude of the hidden minority, those who are judged to be insane for thousands of years, those who see only one true way of existing and knowing and what it means to be a life. TJ grew out from times of great civil strife in a land labeled as united, though anything but. He has been overwhelmed by extreme messages of contradiction and has, for the most part, successfully questioned and replaced all formal conditioning of guardians. TJ has replaced conditioning with direct learning and realization of love and a purpose for existing. TJ is finding deep understanding, only possibly known as personal truth. However, TJ is introduced to us as he or she is introduced to us. TJ is found at the precipice of dead ends amidst choices she has not taken to date. In other words, dithering stuck, right? The world reality has TJ cornered, and all options for escape are evading. Full of despair, newfound clarity, and no longer suppressible anger, TJ struggles to initiate a crucial change in life action. Instead, TJ is favoring a state of personal inaction, focusing on others, firstly people, and then all of the species on the planet, in an attempt to understand what might really be going on this planet called Earth. TJ is introduced at the beginning of a personal falling away from society, one which is falling quickly into chaos. Questioning every word uttered and received and the true origin of meaning, individual purpose, and how we are compelled to act in life. Mysterious, asynchronous affirmations begin to surface, some from the past, some immediate and tied to recent events in question, and some as accurate predictions of what's about to happen. Transient, whimsical visitors and difficult storyline collisions will begin to challenge the definition of what it means to be sane. Life will never be viewed the same again. Like Dante's Gate, one of TJ's favorite countering references. TJ realizes there's no turning back. Just about done. Although TJ's early encounters with Max, one of my characters, although TJ's early encounters with Max will provoke a strong will to act and counter his intense contradictions relative to how TJ has felt and experienced life. A sad guru will also attempt to distract and distort TJ's direction and willing life action, and will prove to be far more formidable than Max and his strike first, question nothing lifestyle. TJ's opposing energy pattern, known as Teresa, a CEO who is winning at the game of life owned by men, will spark a sense of urgency and despair, not admitted to publicly yet. TJ begins to challenge all other storylines, either to push them to their limit or to resign back into a place of balance and inner peace. One thing's for sure, TJ is fed up with the game in progress and begins to dismantle both the board and the players who are often on the board, known as this game of chess amongst fact checkers. Will the game reset and continue? Will they all exit that entertaining distraction and return to life's action and reality from above the game? One thing is certain, the game is over for TJ. His precipice is both symbolic death and quite literally an end of his physical self apart. The only way out is to re-enter. Some people will attempt to block his exit, others his re-entry. Only a few will inspire his persistence to submit to life without quitting. Although everything and event causes certain pain and possible bliss, the only path towards healing for TJ is to experience it all. This overwhelming proposition has TJ frozen at the beginning of a journey with surprising effects on many others and with certain impact on the other side, which is the title of the book. And the other side is the opposite energy of TJ. So
Is
little wordy as I read it. I can hear it, but yep.
He's alone, not lonely. He's going
Yes.
one way and he's a bit troubled. And he's questioning everything. That's what I thought.
Okay.
I don't think he knows what he's getting into though. Yeah.
Or possibly remembering what he got into in the first place.
Yeah. It reminds me of the first chapter we went back and forth. And it was changing.
Yeah.
He's a puzzling, based on what I heard, he's a puzzling character. You must have spent a lot of time, dwelled a lot on Taylor Jordan. I'd like to say Taylor Jordan rather than Jordan Taylor. But,
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, my hope is that I'm trying to take I guess I would call it an asexual approach towards the storyline. I'm trying to preserve a certain line of innocence.
I see men. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm a man. I don't know, but yeah, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, the key issue is it's about energies, not about how they manifest sexually in my book, which I think is interesting because we have Jenny on the call and her and I are kind of opposite in that regard.
Yeah,
so this
yeah.
is really cool what's teeing up here. In my case, I'm just trying to say balance the energies within. And I'm going to try to show through these characters how that might happen. But that you need your opposite to help you balance. Right? You need your opposite in life to show you the effects of that other extreme and also your own extremes, because you are out of balance if you're the only thing in life. So
David, do you think that's it's a representation of, let's say if we have a story, a fiction story, which let's say David's, the opposite is the protagonist and the antagonist. The two main basically characters are because it does sound like that way. That's life actually. That's what life happens.
Yeah.
Usually class. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, last call I showed my continuum. And there's basically 12. There's 6 common opposites in life from what I can see. And so I'm going to try to have these 12 characters, these 6 oppositions kind of, getting into conflict with one another, with each one saying, oh man, I just learned something there. Yeah.
And well, thank you. And feel free to share that, post that on the thread on Publishing Master as well. That's but let me not do a lot of talking. If other people want to jump in, absolutely. Great. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the time today, everybody.
No, it's very good. Okay,
Thanks.
so let's wrap it up. What I'll do is before the end of the week, I'll post the recording just in case other people want to go and watch it. I'll raise another post for the 2 weeks time with so in this case we'll change the topic a little bit, which is around the stories in painting, how stories, so painting, music and writing tell the same thing, tell stories. And I'll post the agenda early next week, and then David is going to put together a presentation, and I'll suggest as well. So any one of you would want to come up with a particular piece of music and painting that you see in storyline, and we all can learn from. That would be great. How does that sound?
Great, thank you.
Great.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Okay, great. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for what's the time? That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for the feedback, and also for sharing your drafts, your characters, and your thoughts on your draft, on your characters and the story. And
Thanks, everybody.
for the suggestion for next week or next time.
Excellent. Good.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Good
Thanks,
to see you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye bye. Thank you. Bye.